Hi, everyone. I'd like to do a shout out to our sponsor, Bacco Diagnostics. Early detection is the single most important factor in improving patient outcomes. The Bacco Diagnostics team recognizes how impactful a podiatric physician can be and remains committed to supporting you in your role as the first line of defense in diagnosing conditions of the lower extremity. Thanks to the unwavering support of their clients, Bacco Diagnostics has been able to give back to the podiatric community for 16 years by providing podiatric educational resources and advocating for the position. Bacco Diagnostics, helping podiatric physicians keep America on its feet. If you have not yet had the opportunity to utilize Bacco Diagnostics services, get started today by sending an email to corporaterations@baccodiagnostics.com. The first 50 podiatry offices who request a starter kit will receive a Dean's Chat mug. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Dean's Chat, where we discuss all things podiatric medicine. My name is Dr. Jeffrey Jensen. I'm the Dean at the Arizona College of Podiatric Medicine and the co-host for the Dean's Chat podcast. Once again, I'm joined by my co-host, Dr. Joanna Richey. Hi, Joe.
Hey, Jeff. I'm really excited about today. How are you doing?
I'm doing fabulous. The semester or the quarter's coming to an end. We've got a graduating class, raring to go. And It's a great time of the year for us at the college.
Graduation season is always a beautiful time of reflection and gratitude. So
absolutely.
Good things.
Great things. Hey, Joe, we have a fabulous guest today. I'd like to introduce Dr. Andrew Belis to Dean's Chat. Dr. Belis, welcome.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure being here, and thanks for the invitation.
You're very welcome. And we're very informal on Dean's Chat. If it's okay with you, let's go first names, Andrew, Joe, and Jeff.
Sure. That's great. Thank you.
All right. Well, I'm going to give you a more formal introduction here. I'm going to start with more recent things. You are the Fellowship Director and founder of the Orthopedic Center of Florida Foot and Ankle Fellowship. We're going to dive headfirst into that in a little bit. But you did your undergraduate work at Boston University. You got your bachelor's degree in human physiology. Just a little side note here. Students that major in physiology tend to do better in our curriculum at the Arizona College. So you're welcome to come back if you want. It's all good. On top of that, you went to Temple University and you graduated in 1999. You did 3 years of residency, 1 year at Wycoff and 2 years at the Greater Baltimore Medical Center. We got a lot to talk about, Dr. Belis, and I thought I'd kick it off with the fellowship. You're the founder. How did that play out? How did it go from maybe thinking about it to acting upon it and then making it real?
Yeah, well, thank you. And thanks for having me again. Yeah, this was kind of a labor of love. And originally I joined the orthopedic group in Fort Myers, Florida. And when I came on board, we had such good pathology because I was their main foot and ankle surgeon, and I took call, and they took trauma call, and I took all of their traumas. So we were getting a really good amount of pathology, and it was really exciting. I wanted to share it with some of our younger members and our younger physicians. And so I went to the hospital. Originally, I had the idea of starting a residency program, and I went to the hospital, and they really didn't have any interest in supporting it, even though we had a lot of good foot and ankle physicians in town. And this was before we had a lot of the orthopedic foot and ankle physicians in town. So a lot of the podiatrists, maybe myself and some others, were getting a lot of this care. Well, nonetheless, they weren't interested. And so I went to my group and I asked them if I could start this fellowship. And the rules are, if you are not associated with a hospital system or a university, you have to do self-funded. So this was a big step because, they had never been part of this type of thing before. And for me, I told them, I think we can make this work. I think we can get it going. And I think it'll be helpful for me and the profession. So they were behind me 100%, and they had my back. And basically after about 4 months, I was able to get a fellowship started. And our first year was 2017. And we had a great candidate. His name is Dr. Doris Collins, and he was our first fellow. He's now practicing in Georgia now. And Doris, it's funny, Doris called me a couple of years later and out of the blue, and he says, I'm really just want to call and thank you for the opportunity. And he's like, everything you taught me, I'm using now in my clinic and my practice. So that's kind of how it started, to share the good pathology that we had, and really just kind of be a mentor and kind of pay it forward, so to speak.
Joe, your thoughts?
Yeah, this is so wonderful. And I love that story that you just shared, Andrew, about the gratitude of having a former fellow call and specifically, hey, look, these are things I'm using every day. And Jeff and I get questions a lot from students, but also residents that are former students, as they're starting to figure out where they're wanting to go. They're starting to get a little bit of a gauge on maybe where some of their interests are, trying to figure out the difference between the benefit of what the fellowship can offer them. Could you talk a little bit about really what the opportunities are in that year of additional training, and why that is very different than what they are receiving in a residency program?
Yeah, I think this is why I started to begin with, is because, when I went through my training and my residency, it was very much hospital based. It was very much, you do a lot of inpatient care, some outpatient care. Maybe you don't get as much rotations through clinic and through your private practice of your attendings. So this was an opportunity for me to showcase some of the outpatient and office-based care, non-hospital-based care. So I think there's a kind of an intermediate step there where you have a mentor and you have somebody you can bounce ideas off of and kind of integrate more outpatient and clinic, or whatever your next step is, but non-hospital based, non-urgent care. And so I think for me, that was one of the best parts of it, because you get to see the pre-ops and the post-ops and really kind of work those patients up and figure out the best algorithms for their care. The second thing is you have, my first fellow, he says to me, he's like, I feel like I'm getting 20 years of experience in 1 year. And I think, so you learn a lot of lessons if you're open to them.
That's certainly something that Jeff and I have kind of talked to each other about in terms of the value and the benefits of fellowship are truly this opportunity to fine tune your skills, finesse what it looks like from start to finish with a patient. And so again, it's lovely to hear from people that are living it and doing it and the creation of it, that's also the experience on your end. And certainly as we've interviewed past fellows or current fellows, it's very much the reflection that they give to us is, man, I feel like I'm going to be, 5 years ahead, when I graduate and start my next job, whether that's a private practice, a group, or, employee of a hospital system. So thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, it's been really nice is mentoring these younger physicians, and some of them, and everybody requires something a little different, or kind of would benefit from something different. Some benefit from a little bit more education on coding or the finances. Some are interpersonal skills, and even in a clinic, some are surgical skills. Some are just kind of working patients up and clinic care. So every fellow needs something a little different or benefits from something a little different. And so each year I find that, they're each getting something different out of it, which is nice.
That is great. Andrew, your partners in the orthopedic group, I know they're supportive from a financial aspect, but do they participate in the fellows training also?
Yeah, I think they do. We've actually grown quite a bit. My original fellows, when we first started, were orthopedic surgeons. And so our fellows had the opportunity to scrub with them and go into cases with them, especially if I wasn't available or if there was a polytrauma and, it was like a hip fracture and an ankle fracture and a wrist. And so they'd work concomitantly together. Subsequently, we've had some increase of physicians join our group. We've hired some other podiatrists and other surgeons. So now there's lots of rotations for the fellow to go with. We have another board certified surgeon, foot and ankle surgeon, who's fellowship trained that our fellows work with. We have a non-surgical podiatrist that they learn a little bit more of the wound care in the clinic and billing. She's a certified coder. And then we have another physician partner who's another podiatrist partner who is doing a lot of clinic as well as forefoot and midfoot work. So it's a nice like variety of different exposures. And then we have the other specialties, like we have a physiatrist at our practice. And so there's opportunity to learn about EMGs and NCVs and doing neurological studies. We have all of the ancillaries, which makes it nice for them to kind of learn how to integrate that into their practice. So it's been really good. It's been very well-rounded, I would say.
Oh, that's great. You know, a lot of first-year residents right now are starting to say to themselves, what am I going to do? I mean, when I'm done, am I getting a job? Do I want a fellowship? Fellowships have kind of proliferated around the country. If they're watching this on YouTube, Dr. Belis, what are you looking for in your fellows, and what is the time frame for signing up or becoming a fellow in your program?
That is the $1 million question, isn't it? I can't tell you the answer because then everybody would get in. No, I think what I look for is somebody who's willing to accept constructive criticism, somebody who's willing to learn, somebody who's self-motivated. I'm not their parent. I'm not there to make them do something that they don't want to do. However, we put the opportunities in front of them, and it's up to them to take advantage of them and to capitalize on them. There are certain things that they have to do as just part of their, employment. But I really am looking for somebody who's looking for the next level. And what I'm looking for is somebody who I see is going to do better than me, somebody who's going to take our profession to the next level, continue to advance it. And because they're going to be a reflection of our program. So, and somebody who's a team player and obviously who's got good hands and good diagnostic skills. But really it's that kind of well-rounded person is what I'm looking for.
Well, they truly are an extension of you in the community. So
right.
That makes sense.
Right. My father said this to me once. He says, he's like, I asked him because he had a pretty good business, not in medicine. And I said, do you want me to take over your business and do well? It looks like you're doing very well. And he says, he's like, no, I want you to do better than me. And so, he kind of pushed me into or encouraged me to follow my love of medicine. And at the time I didn't even know about podiatry. And then that's kind of what I learned about it. And I said, oh, this is great. And I met a podiatrist in Boston and decided that's the route for me. So that's what I'm looking for these guys, is to do better than me and to even far exceed what we can do.
Wow, you've had an incredible career. If you don't mind, Joe, I'm just going to ask a quick question. Who are your mentors, Andrew? I mean, I know we've all been shaped by the people that come before us. How has that played out for you?
That's a tough question for me because I've had so many mentors, and I like to say that I've learned a little bit from everybody that I encounter. And I continue to have new mentors because, when I come across somebody who I admire, I try to emulate some of their good practices and some of their good habits. And, I think my biggest mentor is my father, just because, he had a good work ethic. He came from, he was an immigrant from Greece and came here with nothing in his pocket and $20 in his pocket, I should say, and just kind of made something of himself, put his kids through college. And so for me, that work ethic, that was just, really good family and cultural ethics. Those things were really beneficial for me. So I think he was one of my biggest mentors.
That's fabulous. I love that. Joe, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'd love to piggyback off of that. There are a lot of students that are pre-health. They haven't really decided on a career. And a lot of them from immigrant families that find themselves kind of navigating toward a medicine type career, but they haven't been able to find something that they love. Can you talk a little bit more about your experience with that first podiatrist and how it impacted you?
Yeah, so I wanted to do medicine since I was I wanted to do something in the medical field since I was in 6th grade. I remember dissecting cow heart and lungs and just loving it. And frankly, some of the kids in the class didn't even want to touch it. And I was like, oh, I'll do yours and I'll do yours. So I knew I wanted to do that. I always had some interest in medicine. I always like to help people. I like fixing things with my hands and very hands-on type person. So when I met this podiatrist in Boston on one of my rotations, and he had a great life, very happy. He he was telling me about his economic benefits as well as his, not too many people were dying on him, thank goodness. I mean, that's a good thing. But the thing I liked the most is that he did a little bit of derm, he did a little bit of ortho, he did a little bit of vascular, he did a little bit of neuro. It was focused to the lower extremity. So for me, it was a little bit of the best of everything, with the only restriction being lower extremity.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, it's always fun to hear the stories of how people find out about podiatry. It's like the best kept secret in medicine, and yet none of us really want it to be a secret. So figuring out, how to reach people where they are. And so many students, when they find about podiatry, it checks off so many boxes of, oh, this is something I'm really interested in. So thank you for sharing your experience.
Yeah, I agree. And as a matter of fact, we have a lot of students who come through our orthopedic center who are intending on going to ortho.
Yeah.
I remember this one student who came through, and we were telling her about, because she rotated through the ortho and then she came to our floor and rotated through podiatry. And I remember she was learning about what we do and the benefits, and she ended up going to podiatry school. I don't want to say we stole her away from orthos, but we gave her some opportunities that she researched, and she ended up getting into podiatry school. And she wrote us a letter saying, "Thank you for letting us know about this." So I think we all have to help out by promoting our profession, and because it's hard to know about all the professions that are out there. So I think talking about the positives, helps us out.
Yeah, and so many don't realize it's a separate track. When they meet usually a foot and ankle surgeon, they just assume, appropriately so, that, oh, this is just part of all of the specialties when you go to medical school. So just even knowing that there is a actual separate, distinct track, 4 years of podiatric medical school, 3 years of a surgical residency, and now fellowships becoming so much more, I don't want to say in vogue, but I think it's the natural progression of our training, that it's going to become even more common than I think it is already. So again, thank you. I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole, Jeff, but just some fun little side conversations about your own experiences.
Yeah, thank you.
So Andrew, that old saying, if you want to get something done, ask the busiest person to do it. Not only do you have this big practice, you're running a fellowship, but you have found time to give back to our profession in a large scale. I just want to highlight one thing, and we'll just continue on. But in the Florida Podiatric Medical Association, which just is a phenomenal representation of our profession in the state of Florida, in 2016, you were the podiatrist of the year. And I don't know how you really top that, right? But then in 2022, you're the Meritorious Service Award winner. Tell us about this giving back to the profession. I imagine a lot of that comes from your father and your family, but you really give back and you want to see this profession thrive. And that's part of why you started a fellowship. But what are your origins in giving back to the profession?
Well, I didn't start off as, this gung-ho give back kind of guy, although I always wanted to help each other, help each other. When I joined the group here at the Orthopedic Center, I was the only podiatrist. And so for me, I needed a way to connect with some of the other podiatrists in the area. And sometimes there's some animosity when you're in an orthopedic group, especially back in those days. And, where most of the people are in podiatry only groups or single podiatrists here and there. So I wanted a way to connect, and so I attended my first local county meeting for the FPMA, and I really found it was helpful and beneficial, and I saw a lot of potential there, and I met some really good people, and it was a way for me to kind of network with them originally. And so partly it was for some reasons that were not so altruistic at the time, but once I found out that, hey, this is a good avenue for sharing of ideas and learning and helping and I could show what the skill set that I could bring to the area here. It was more camaraderie than it was competition. So then I became president of that component, mostly by default, because it's work, and they usually get the young guys to do most of the work. But I loved it. And then I went up to the state society level, and because each county has to report to the state. And then I found even a continued group of great people there, and everybody was working towards this common goal of improving our profession. And so I got involved with that, and then it continued, to snowball. And as I did more, you learn how to do more. Obviously, when you take on more, you learn how to do more. And then I got more and more involved, and I just started really enjoying it a lot more. And it became just really this passion of helping. And because I was doing well, and I wanted other people to do well too. And so that's kind of how it started. And then it just became a wonderful organization. I used to think it was like an all boys club. I couldn't get in, and I was this guy from out of state. I came into state. I didn't do any of the residencies in the state. I was kind of coming from away. And ended up they welcomed me with open arms, and it was just a great experience for me. So I really feel like that got me excited about being on the state board.
That's a great story. And, under the leadership of Karen Lambert, I've enjoyed working with the Florida Podiatric Medical Association. Their meetings are great. They're really helping us with our recruitment efforts, going to colleges around the state of Florida, offering, mentoring and shadowing opportunities. It's just a strong group, strong association, and you've been a big part of it in the past. I just wanted to
Karen is fantastic. I remember when she came on board, her brother-in-law, Mark, God rest his soul, he passed away recently, or a little bit ago now, but he was the guy that recruited me onto the board. And he was, talk about giving back to our profession. That guy, he gave back, blood and sweat, and he was educator, and he was going back to mentors. He was one of my mentors for the FPMA, and he's since passed away, but I will always remember him. So anyway, that's a good family, in other words.
Absolutely. Joe, I was going to talk about, some of Andrew's experience in industry too, because you've got lots of certifications, lots of experience. But maybe we should give a quick shout out to our sponsor first.
I was just going to say, before we switch to industry, we could give a shout out to our industry sponsors.
All right. Well, hey, let's do a shout out.
Beautiful, Jeff.
I know, it's a nice segue. Let's give a shout out to Bacco Diagnostics. We all know that early detection is the most important determination in improving patient outcomes. Bacco Diagnostics remains committed to supporting you in your role as the first line of defense in diagnosing lower extremity pathologies. Bacco Diagnostics, helping podiatric physicians keep America on its feet. Kudos to Bacco, Andrew. They've given so much to the schools and the residencies and the profession. We love representing them, and we're so excited to have them as a sponsor.
I agree. I that's one thing I have to admit is, even though I try to be unbiased, my heart goes out to all of the industry that helps support continued education and meetings, because that really helps drive us as a unified front to move forward. So Bacco has done a lot, even for the state of Florida. We're really appreciative of them. So have others. And, so I really give kudos to all the industry out there. And I try to be helpful for industry as well.
Absolutely. One of the first things that jumped out at me, Andrew, was your certifications for total ankle replacements. It's like, all the different companies that do it. You are a leader in innovation, and you are a leader in pushing the profession forward from a surgical perspective. Can you share your experiences with industry and them, helping not only your skills, but in the options for your patients?
Yeah, I think, obviously, total ankles are kind of interesting. There's multiple generations now that have evolved. And I started doing it way back in the day when the agility and the outcomes were a little bit mixed, but we didn't have a lot of good options back then. And so, as the evolution of different replacements came about, I started getting more involved with getting training on them and kind of learning and evolving with that kind of device. So as the years went on, I was still a little gun shy on using a lot of these products, but because the older generations just were not as predictable as some of the newer generation models. So, but I am a firm believer of, getting your hands on everything and learning all of the options, even if you have preferences, because then you at least know the nuances in and out of each of the devices and some of the benefits. You can then make your own independent decision on which is best in your hands. So most recently, I've been using more of the Paragon. I've used the Vantage before that, the Wright Medical implants, or old Wright Medical, now Stryker. So I think it really depends on what's needed, regardless of any affinity for certain industry or another. But I think one of the things recently, not to switch gears on you, but this whole MIS thing, I've been doing a lot of that as well. And that has been interesting to see all of the different companies and having experience with, as many of the companies as I can get my hands on as far as their techniques. And even though it's very similar techniques and different jigs and this and that, it's really nice to have see the best of each of the companies, and then you can take little pieces of tidbits from each of the company techniques and then incorporate into what you think works best in your patient care. And so that's just another little thing I've been trying to maximize, is just get exposure to many equipment as I can.
That's fabulous. Joe, we've had this discussion with industry and education before.
Yeah, and I appreciate what you said, Andrew, several conversations back, where you had mentioned we can't do some of the education that we want to do without our industry sponsors, but there is an importance in not doing it in a way that starts to produce bias. And I really appreciated that you called that to attention. And certainly looking at your CV, it's very evident you have worked with multiple different systems. This isn't like a conflict of interest of any kind, but I would love your take on how do we walk that line? Because I don't know if anybody has the answers to this, because our industry sponsors want to be helpful as well. They do want to promote their product, but they're also, I do genuinely believe that the majority of them genuinely want to progress medical education. What do you think are the best ways to create if you could create the optimal learning environment, we'll say, how would you do it in a way to optimize for engagement and teaching different techniques by at the same time trying to limit the amount of bias that is built in?
We
don't usually throw hardball questions.
Complex question. I think here's the pitfalls that we fall into as surgeons, is that we tend to find a product that works decent in our hands and we kind of stick with it. And the willingness to change is a little bit scary. The willingness to accept different technologies can be challenging. And sometimes we get bias from a particular company because we have a relationship with them or the people in their team. And we've all been down that road where, yeah, that's my favorite type of whatever equipment it is. And I think we have to be strong enough and confident enough in our own skill set to push the limits and push the envelope and be willing to try each of the companies without fear of retribution or negativity. Because really, how are we going to make each other better? How are we going to make each of the companies better? But if we don't challenge each of them. And so for me, I do a lot of ankle arthroscopy, and there's not a lot of companies out there that have arthroscopic specific equipment that helps do certain things, whether it's lateral ligament or arthroscopic rostrums or whatnot. There's one or two that do it good. But I always challenge those companies as well to do better. And how can we make the equipment better? And so it's this constant trying to improve upon industry that will challenge the industries to do better. And so if it means trying a different company and allowing, and seeing if that works better. And usually these are done in cadaver labs and things like that. We don't want to experiment on our patients. But once you feel comfortable with certain techniques, there's always room for improvement. That's why we're still in our adolescence from an equipment standpoint, because it keeps getting better and better and better. I mean, just look at all the new products coming out. So I don't know if that answered your question, but that's kind of my mantra, and that's why I have exposure to the different companies as well.
Yeah. No, I think that was excellent. Can I piggyback real quick, Jeff, on
For
that?
sure.
because you'd also mentioned MIS, and there's a lot of different definitions and terms that people can go down for MIS. But I do think that the future of surgery is going to be smaller and smaller incisions. It seems to be the natural progression if we look at other specialties. What has been your experience with training someone on something that has perhaps they've learned it in an open setting, translating that now to a closed setting? I think this is actually easier compared to never having the chance to have learned something open and doing it only percutaneous or minimal incision. We won't even go percutaneous, but we'll say minimally incision approaches. Where do you think the future of teaching these techniques? Because so many of the population right now, we have all learned on open. So translating basic principles into closed settings, I think is actually much easier compared to a novice learner who is only learning MIS. What are your thoughts?
That's an interesting comment that you bring, because I just mentioned that today to our fellow, and I said, I think if we keep training people with only MIS, we're going to forget our open, our open techniques. But I think you also have to. When I train people on minimal MIS procedures, minimal invasive procedures, let's just take the bunion, for instance, MIS bunion. I tell them, listen, it's technically small incision, but really this particular surgery with a bunion, you're doing a transverse osteotomy. And so really that's the minimum. That's minimum periosteal dissection. I think that's the take home message. Whether you make a small incision, this race to make the incision smaller and smaller is a little bit overblown. If you need to make the incision a little bigger to protect the neurovascular bundle so you have less risks, it's okay. It's okay. But what you're preserving is your periosteum. Same thing with this lateral fibular nails. If you need to open up the fracture, you do need to open up the fracture to make sure it's reduced properly. And then you're not making this big honking incision with periosteal stripping for a plate. So I try to teach that technique of, hey, think of, don't think how big your incision is. Obviously you want to keep them small if you can for better healing and for less dissection, but think of these other things first. What's the goal of this trying to achieve is less disruption of bone healing, because skin will heal. And even with scars, even if you have to revise a scar, it can happen. I mean, if it happens, they do fine. So I do agree with you, though, and that's where your anatomy comes into play. I think the surgeon's the best class is anatomy. And I think if you know your anatomy, you'll do well. I mean, that's everything, knowing your nutrient arteries are, knowing your neurovasculature, and then knowing there can be some slight variations of the nerve pathways and things like that. But I agree with you is that we have to be careful, continue to have some open procedure training, continue to have some lesser invasive procedure training. And just because you see something on social media doesn't mean you should just jump right to it. You should still have that open experience. And if you want to do open and then MIS, do cadaver open and just get a feel for it. I mean, I can't tell you, when I was doing, before I even started a fellowship, I'd go to literally hundreds of cadaver courses. Thank God I had a big company right down the street from me in Naples. But the concept is that I would go and go and go, and you just practice different things. And yes, I would do the things that they recommend, but then I would do other techniques to improve my skill set. So it can be done. It's just, I think you should learn both.
Yeah.
Joe, I'm going to take a snippet from this for the students, emphasizing anatomy.
Yeah.
We emphasize it, Andrew, don't get me wrong, but they get so much anatomy, and boards part 1, 40% of it is anatomy, and surgery is applied anatomy. So I just love that statement.
Yeah. Now I look back now and I say, why did I need to know the articular surface positioning and like, who cares now I know, like, you need it all. You need it all.
Absolutely.
I remember there was they do interviews differently now, but I remember there was a rumor about a program that would give you a piece of soap and ask you to carve the talus. Like, you need to know the inner workings of, and same thing, Andrew, I'd be like, why would they make you do that? And now I'm like, look at the calcaneus, like, just look at it. It's bizarre. But if you can capture it in your mind, then you can reproduce it in the operating room. But if you can't capture it in your mind, you don't know what you're doing, because you're just looking at a little window. So
Joe, that was Dr. Nicholas Grumbine in Los Angeles that was having students carve taluses out
All
of
right.
a
So it
barb.
wasn't just a rumor.
It was not a
true.
rumor. No, that's true.
Yeah.
That's a
I heard
good
someone
one.
split their hand open and then it was done. Yeah.
I like the one where they put a bunch of bones in a little bag and you reach out and you pick one and you feel it and you got to tell them which one it is.
Yeah. And honestly, I mean, I like to think I'm a great surgeon because anatomy was my favorite and best subject. So, and I think, and then I'm like, I come into using it now. So anyway.
So Andrew, I have a question for you. Well, you and I met on LinkedIn, and I can't go on LinkedIn without seeing some orthopedic surgeon or podiatric surgeon posting a pre and post-op video with what technique they used, what company they used, who sponsored it. And then you've got about 10 surgeons that have lots of experience commenting on it. It's like an educational experience every time I open up the app. Your thoughts on that? I mean, it's very common right now.
Yeah, I'm torn a little bit. And this is a shameless plug, I have to admit, but this is one of the reasons why I did the 15 Blades app and kind of got behind that movement, because that is truly the only HIPAA compliant way to share ideas, share thoughts. It's still gaining traction. I do recommend it still. I used to be one of their number 1 or 2 contributors. I've slowed down, admittedly, because there's so many social media outlets out there to follow. I have family. I'd rather spend time with the family. But the LinkedIn, you get lay people looking at that. Sometimes if there's a picture of a foot and there's a tattoo on there, that's not HIPAA compliant. It's a patient identifier. So I just worry that we're getting too commercialized from that standpoint. Now, it's still a good idea to share ideas. Listen, any sharing of ideas, I'm all for, and I want everyone to learn from each other to do better. But the only fear I have is that it's a little bit, it's getting a little much, and now it's also an avenue for promotional of equipment. So I love that. I'm a little torn. I love it, but I'm cautious of it. And, that's why I think this other idea of that 15 Blades is a good technique to share ideas.
Oh, I so agree. There's a line there. You're right. It's hard to exactly say where that line should be. Sometimes I think it gets crossed. I'm with you.
The only thing I'll mention is that it's a double-edged sword, because that's kind of how that you can get a good reputation if you're doing good work and you're showing your products. And sometimes you're showing the best of your best, right? Obviously, nobody wants to show their bad things, but you can actually develop really good following and reputation, and people can start picking on you in a good way. Like, hey, I want him to speak, or I want, so you have to just be careful with today's social media that you're not just a culmination of the best of your cases showing off. And that, but if there's a good idea there, I'm happy to share it and pick up on it,
Well, plus once you get to know each other a little bit, even if it is social media and you've got a tough case and you call them up and you're like, hey, what do you think? I mean, I could see the relationships that are built on social media, assisting docs in their delivery of care to their patients.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm saying. I think it's good because you can share, but I just be cautious if you are a LinkedIn, person that you're pushing things out there. Just make sure it's HIPAA compliant and all that good stuff. But most of them do that. Yes.
Shout out to 15 Blades, Joe. I mean, we've had David on the show, and he's fabulous. And
that's actually as soon as you had said that, that was my first thought was. That is one of, again, in my mind, a significant benefit with 15 Blades is it does try to take away some of that bias and promotion of a product and revert back to the principles, enabling or not enabling, like pooling the audience. Like, hey, I want a group of experts to help weigh in here. What would you do? In a way that isn't just like, oh, high five. Like, it really provides a different kind of opportunity to engage with each other. And so, yeah, agreed on all fronts. Social media is wonderful and terrible all at the same time.
There you go.
And it's hard to keep up. I mean, there's so many social media outlets that I would love to follow all day long, but I yell at my kids for being on social media for too long. And now I'm sure they're not looking at medical procedures. But, I can't be bogged down that all day long with that either. I have, my life to live as well. So,
Well, that's a great segue, having a life to live. What do you do when you're not engrossed in podiatric medicine and surgery?
oh, well, I do lots of things. One of my favorite escapes is to go to my backyard and play pickleball. We during COVID, we had a lockdown a little bit, and we had purchased the model home that was a little older, but it had this cement slab on it next to it, and the builder said, "Well, when you buy it, I'll get rid of it." And I said, "No, no, no, leave it for my kids to play." So the kids were playing for many years. COVID happens, and I have this big slab, and I used to play tennis, and I said, let's just put a tennis court there, and it just wasn't big enough. So I ended up playing pickleball once or twice, and I'm like, well, this is great. I'll put one of those there. So I wasn't working, so literally I bought paint at the store, and I just painted a pickleball court, and we started playing. And so now we usually play once a week. I get a group of guys to play, and it's really nice. Now my son's picked it up. My other kids play it, so that's fun. We also have a boat in our backyard, so we put that in the water and go boating with friends and family. That's kind of fun. We do travel a lot, quite a bit. I like going to Europe. My father was originally, well, he's passed now, but my father was from Greece, so we go to Greece periodically. We like cruises. We do a lot for the arts too in town. So my wife is really into theater, and we donate money to several of the theaters in town, and we have season tickets, so we're constantly at the shows. My kids have, I think, got the bug too, because they're all performers, and they recently have won some awards and this and that. So my son is now into it as well. He's 15, and my oldest is really into choreography. My middle is a dancer, so it's kind of like a family thing. And the kids asked, where do we get this talent from? And they looked to my wife, and my wife, not me. And I'm all quiet because I did some theater and some singing in high school, but it was only because there were some cute girls in those clubs. So, but I held my own. I held my own.
That's fabulous. Well, I did notice on social media, and you had posted that you saw Les Mis. That's one of my favorites of all time.
Oh yes, yeah. There's several. Hadestown is another good one that I like, and my daughter has some fantastic. My oldest, my 20-year-old, she's had some fantastic performances lately for some of the theater companies in town. I've been very proud of watching them, get better from that standpoint. So it's been fun. That's been enjoyable.
Oh, that's fabulous. Joe, do you want to do any rapid fires?
Yeah. So you had mentioned travel, Andrew. If you could go anywhere, hop on a plane tomorrow, where would you guys go?
I think one of my favorite spots is Greece. When we were growing up, we would go to a different island every other year. And there's so many islands I still haven't been to. I'd like to go to different places there. But one of the things I do like to do is just to have different experiences too. So it's not just the same spot in Greece that we go to, like we've been to Italy. We've been to Spain. I love Spain. I love Italy. I'd like to go to some other places, some other spots in France, some other places, just because I enjoy these new experiences. So we've been to Alaska before. We've been quite a few places. It's just, that's why I get excited for new things and different things. Still like the beautiful areas in Greece because it's still my favorite, but these other places I like the exploring.
Andrew, you a cocktails or a wine guy? Sorry, Jeff.
No, go for it.
Get in another one.
What was the question? I'm sorry.
Cocktails or wine when you travel?
Cool. Well, recently I've been avoiding alcohol so I could lose some weight, and I've accomplished that. There was a period of about 6 months or so I was not drinking at all, but more by choice, not by necessity. But I do like, I'm a little snob on both ends, so I like higher end wines that are very, very good, low tannins. I'm a Malbec kind of guy, but I also like Cabs. And then I've recently gotten into higher end bourbons. So I like that. And I do like some higher end tequilas. So more bourbon right now, or more bourbon
Okay.
because you can have one little small cup of bourbon and sip it and enjoy it throughout the night, as opposed
Yeah.
to, multiple glasses, that type of thing.
Mhm. Yeah. An alternative beverage of choice. If you're not drinking alcohol, what would you order?
I'm kind of a boring club soda kind of guy. I haven't had soda. I haven't had like Coke or Pepsi over 25 years. I just have sworn off, dark colas. Even the Sprites and the clubs, excuse me, ginger ale I might have once in a while, but that's
Right.
about it. So more I'm club soda kind of guy. I like flavored club sodas. Those are fun. That type of thing.
Awesome.
Good stories. Andrew, you'll like this. Paul Scheer, who is biomechanics, he's passed away. He was one of my professors in biomechanics at California. And the first day of class, he came in and he said, how well you learn this material will decide whether you vacation in Santorini or you vacation in Tijuana. I mean, everybody remembers that, right? So there you go. Go to Greece. I'm in. And then I was going to share with you. I went to a bourbon tasting at my buddy's the other night, and he took two Wellers and he mixed them together. It's like a Weller 12 and another older antique or something. Put them together in certain proportions, and it's supposed to equal a Pappy's just for the record.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, it was new to me. I was like, right on, let's go for it.
But what I do like is good quality, but not just because of the name. So I think that's important, is that you can find good quality without having to deal with a super expensive name. I like to find the diamond in the rough there.
Love it. I think that's fabulous. So food of choice, you're going out for dinner tonight. Where do you go?
My favorite seafood is Chilean sea bass.
Ooh, nice.
I do like a nice steak. And then my always backup option is good Greek food, chicken. And my wife makes this amazing egg lemon drop soup. It's called avgolemino soup, and it's a traditional soup, but it's fantastic. And it means a lot to me because my dad was excellent at making it. It's a little hard to make because you have to separate the egg from the egg yolk, and you have to heat it up at a certain speed, otherwise it curdles. And so a while back when my dad was living, he taught her, and now she's got it right. And so that for me is a food that I really enjoy because of the nostalgia there.
That's fabulous.
Awesome. Yeah.
So I had a question about the pickleball. How was the learning curve for you?
It was actually pretty good. It's pretty easy. I think that's why it's so popular, because, you could know nothing about pickleball, and after a couple games kind of start to get the feel of it. And I think the hard part is just learning some of the rules, but I think then there's like an exponential growth where you have different techniques. I found myself being very neurotic about it and watching YouTube videos and getting little strategic techniques. And it's like surgery. You know what to do, but sometimes things just don't always happen the right way, right? And so there's always these little side things that happen. But the pickleball is a game of not making mistakes. So if you can avoid mistakes, you'll play really, really well, and even let the other team make the mistakes. Have you played?
I don't, but my kids play. My son plays a lot.
Oh, you can pick it up easy.
Yeah, and
His son's a professional.
yeah, he does play it on tour. No, it's okay. I find it interesting because he got really neurotic about it. He ended up buying machines and was drilling every imaginable, 1,000 shots a day or something. I told him I can very easily live vicariously through him. That's no problem when it comes to pickleball. But it's true. I mean, you can get pretty good, and then do you enter tournaments and stuff like that or not?
I don't. I'm not that gung ho with it. I rather play with like 5 of my good friends than play with strangers that I don't know. And it's the competition is not that's not for competition for me. I'd rather get in a competition with some of my local buddies that we, can kind of, talk smack about and have a good time, and we're all going to be friends afterwards. And but I don't mind playing with some new people. It's just more of I just like our core group that we play with.
It certainly has taken the world by storm. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, I used to be the best guy in town. Now everybody's better than me.
That's because you provide them a place to play. They're probably playing when you're out of town on your court.
Yes.
All right. Joe, anything else on your end? Any questions?
No, thank you so much, Andrew, for taking the time to come talk with us and the audience about your experiences. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It's been wonderful, and I appreciate everybody contributing to our profession. I appreciate you guys.
Oh, thank you, Andrew. And thank you for all you've done for our profession, and kudos for starting a fellowship. I mean, what a great opportunity for young people to, like you said, advance their career quickly. We are going to send you a cup, a Dean's Chat cup. Get the morning going for you and your beverage of choice. And for all of our listeners out there, if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, please give us a 5-star rating, or even better, leave a comment or two. And if you're watching on YouTube, by all means, become a subscriber. Until next week, everybody, we'll continue to bring you leaders in our profession like Dr. Belis. Thank you again. All right. Cheers, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thanks, Jeff and Joe.